Welcome to TV Africa News. Thank you so much for joining us and always being part of us. This is Africa Today. My name is Nahawa Kajura, but first are the headlines. UPDF, South Sudan Army signed pact on fighting rebels. Uganda Free Zones Authority calls for more than fiscal incentives for investors. Mozambique authorities restrict filming of accidents. In a sports news today, launch intensifies focus on African football finances. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. We start with one of our top stories. Uganda People's Defense Forces and the South Sudan People's Defense Forces have agreed to form structures and share intelligence information on South Sudan rebels alleged to be hiding in Uganda disguised as refugees. We have the report.
According to the agreement, UPDF and SSPDF will also share intelligence information on the Uganda National People's Liberation Armed Forces alleged to be operating in South Sudan and dissidents of the National Salvation Army hiding in Uganda. The agreement was reached at the weekend during a meeting between General Wilson Ambadi, the UPDF Chief of Defense Forces, and Lieutenant General James Koang Chowol, the SSPDF Deputy Chief of Defense Forces, in charge of training and research at the UPDF 4th Division headquarters in Gulu City. The SSPDF authorities claimed that some Ugandans crossed to South Sudan under the guise of doing business only to join the National Salvation Army. When they encounter resistance, they then flee and hide in Uganda disguising as refugees. General Mbadi later told TV Africa in an interview that the agreement comes following the spillover of the UN, PLAF and the National Salvation Army activities into Uganda and South Sudan. We have agreed to work together to make sure whatever insecurity affecting the two counties is dealt with through sharing of information where necessary, joint operations against the negative groups, and also being strict on refugee influx because some of the guys who pretend to be refugees are combatants, General Mbadi said.
Away from that, officials from the Uganda Free Zones Authority have asked government and the relevant government agencies to expand and include more non-fiscal incentives compared to fiscal incentives given to investors.
Speaking at a media briefing in Kampala, Rebecca Namuli, the Director of Business Development at Uganda Free Zones Authority, said that non-fiscal incentives, once provided, contribute almost 80% of that muscle production. She revealed that with the current operations, prisons have challenges of high electricity and transport costs among others, noting that these contribute to the final costs of production and the final cost of the product which is sold in the international market. She noted that the non-fiscal incentives will enable the products that are being manufactured in Uganda in this free zone specifically to be able to compete on price and also the quality. She further explained that this will make a difference on pricing, attract more incentives in the free zones, and create more job opportunities. Speaking at the same meeting, the Executive Director of Uganda Free Zones Authority, Chimomi Alinda, said transition from the fiscal incentives will make the free zone scheme more competitive and developmental. The Uganda Free Zones Authority is a government agency established by the Free Zones Act 2014 for the purpose of creating opportunities for export-oriented investment and job creation.
Away from that, as Uganda joins the rest of Africa in celebrating the Africa Civil Registration and Vital Statistics Data Day 2022, the National Identification and Registration Authority (NIRA) has committed to raise awareness to improve birth and death registration rights in Uganda. This was revealed by the Chairman Board of Directors NIRA Joseph Baribonwa as he addressed the media during the launch of the Civil Registration and Vital Statistics Month at Uganda Media Center in Kampala.
Addressing the media at Uganda Media Center in Kampala during the launch of the Civil Registration and Vital Statistics Month, Joseph Biribonwa, the Chairman Board of Directors NIRA, said that NIRA is committed to raise awareness to improve birth and death registration rates in Uganda. According to Joseph Biribonwa, NIRA, in conjunction with the Ministry of Health and local governments, has deployed systems and registration resources in health facilities and sub-counties around the country. He added that they have also trained 2,021 duty bearers and 176 persons on verbal autopsy to facilitate birth and death registration happening in communities. On the other hand, the Minister of Internal Affairs Kayindo Tafiri has revealed that the country is to start registration for new digital identification cards featured by DNA as the lifespan for the current ones has expired. He says the registration will commence in 2023 and the IDs will be ready by 2024. The Director Minister of Education Ismail Mulindwa says the intervention has given them an opportunity of having the newly born registered before they join education, adding it is coming timely having the learners registered and committed supporting NERA.
Africa Today takes a quick break. We shall come back with the international news. Welcome back to the break. You're still watching TV Africa, the right to know. In our international news, Mozambique has banned people from filming accident and disaster scenes before calling in the emergency authorities to provide assistance. We have the report.
The move is aimed at changing the attitudes of citizens who only take photos of accidents or other emergency situations and publish them on social media. The measure is part of the new National Public Safety Service law approved in December last year and has now just taken effect. Those who do not comply must pay a fine of an amount up to 100 times of the country's minimum wage, $125. This is if an investigation proves that a person who disseminated the images was at the scene but did not inform the authorities, Leonila Doperembe, the head of the country's fire brigade, said. A person providing false information about a particular incident may also face criminal prosecution, according to the spokesman for the National Criminal Investigation Authority. For example, in a case where an individual appears in the media saying that the firefighters arrived late and there is no way to prove it, he explained. While the new measure is now in effect, a regulation on how it is going to be implemented is being drafted to include details of when an offense deserves minimum or maximum punishment.
Away from that, Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo has denied endorsing the presidential bid of Nigerian politician Peter Obi following claims on social media in the two West African nations. We have the report.
President Akufo-Addo termed the claims completely false and mischievous. Ghana and Nigeria boast of decades of cordial, strong and brotherly relations, and I'm not going to be the one to interfere in the internal affairs and politics of Nigeria, he said. Peter Obi is vying for the presidency on a Labour Party ticket. Nigerians will elect a new president in February 2023.
Moving on, in international news, Mali has received 5 military jets and a combat helicopter from Russia, a close ally in its fight against jihadist insurgency.
At a ceremony for the handover, Defense Minister Sadio Kamara paid tribute to what he called Mali's win-win partnership with Russia. Ties between the two countries have grown since the coup in May last year. That second military takeover in just over a year plus Mali's decision to hire Russian mercenaries were key reasons why France chose to pull its troops out of the country. Jihadist attacks have increased in recent weeks. Over the weekend, Islamist militants shot dead 17 soldiers and 4 civilians. The army said 9 other troops were missing and 22 soldiers were injured in the air.
Well, thank you so much, reporter. Moving on, in our top stories, votes are being counted in Kenya where a new president is being chosen to succeed Uhuru Kenyatta. We have the report.
Polling day was largely peaceful, but turnout was low amid voter apathy and frustration over rising food prices, corruption and fears of violence. The Electoral Commission estimated turnout at around 60%, well short of the 80% seen at the last election 5 years ago. Kenyans are eagerly waiting to find out if the next leader is the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, who's backed by Mr. Kenyatta, or William Ruto, the Deputy President. People have also been electing county governors and MPs. Official results are not expected for several days. A tight race is predicted.
While Africa Today takes a quick break, she'll come back with business, health, and sports. Welcome back from the break. You're watching TV Africa, the right channel. Talking matters business, the premonition of defective works that marred the construction of the 183.2 megawatts Isimba hydropower dam came to pass on Monday after the plant was shut down. Now following flooding of the powerhouse that houses generators and turbines. By press time last evening, the Ministry of Energy technocrats were still waiting for a comprehensive technical report from the Uganda Electricity Generation Company engineers about cause of the technical glitch 3 years after the dam was commissioned, as one of the ruling NRM parties highlight during President Museveni's 5th term. In a brief statement, the company said the powerhouse ingressed water during a planned maintenance outage, necessitating an emergency shutdown as safety precaution. Barely half of the 183 megawatts generated by the dam, one of President Museveni's pet projects, is consumed by the country due to, among others, the low absorption capacity of the transmission and Kayunga and Kamuli districts, $568 million, 80% alone from China's Exim Bank. However, the monopoly distribution service provider Umeme yesterday warned the public around the Greater Kampala metropolitan area and parts of eastern and western Uganda to brace for power blackouts for up to 8 days. The Umeme head of communications, Mr. Peter Kauja, asked the public to be calm as the problem is rectified. Since Monday, they have updated the teams working to restore normal functionality. Some customers may be affected, but the teams are working to ensure power supply from other sources. Now talking matters health, about 1,500 former students of Chera Agricultural College in Bara City can't find employment due to lack of practicing certificates from the Uganda Veterinary Board.
The affected students have since 2010 been awarded diplomas in animal production and management at the college. This means that they cannot be allowed to work both in government and private institutions. Under the umbrella body Chela Alumni Association KAA, the graduates told Daily Monitor in an interview that National Drug Authority has closed the veterinary drug shops they had opened up due to lack of practicing licenses. To secure a job or even practice, you have to possess a practicing certificate from Uganda Veterinary Board, UVB, but our former institution chair has not formalized a registration with UVB. Mr. Patrick Nwamanya, the chairperson of KAA, said on Sunday. The students say they paid for registration with UVB, but the institution hasn't registered them. I had opened up a veterinary drug shop at Hurugongo in Fort Portrait, but when I went back in 2021 to NDA to renew my operational license, they told me I have to first register with UVB. When I went to UVB after paying the registration fees, I was surprised that our institution had not formalized their registration with them, Mr. Nwamanya said. Mr. Pastori Kamia, another graduate, said he was denied an opportunity to work as an assistant veterinary officer in Zimbabwe district because he had no practicing license from UVB. I missed an opportunity to get a job and am now just idle, he said. Mr. Gilbert Amutuhaire, another graduate, said NDA closed his shop in Kabushweda, Kashungi sub-county, Chiruhura district. NDA communications manager Abias Ramili insisted that without a practicing license from Uganda Veterinary Board, no one is allowed to run a veterinary drug store or practice. When contacted, Chela acting principal John Patrick Mutagubia blamed the Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries for failing to institute a new board to follow up on the registration process.
In a sports news today, as member nations gather for this week's General Assembly for the Confederation of African Football, concerns of the organization's finances look set to be a major talking point in the Tanzanian city Arusha. We have more on this report.
The African Super League will be launched on Wednesday, which is being promoted by CAF President Patrice Motsepe and supposed to kickstart a new era for club football in the region. Yet with mounting losses in the continent's governing body, questions remain as to where the $200 million the new tournament is expected to generate will come from, with some fearing the new league will deplete CAF funds rather than bring in much-needed buoyancy. CAF's latest audited accounts, which the BBC has seen, saw losses amounting to just under $45 million, a 400 for 2020-2021, a 400% increase on the previous financial year. At the same time, CAF's reserves have plummeted by a similar amount, as a result, nearly having to $50 million when they have seen $94 million a year earlier. Increased staff salaries and benefits, which rose by 38% to $6.6 million, are one reason for reduced funds, as is the COVID pandemic, but the chief financial concern remains the loss of income from the $1 billion Lagarde TV deal. It is widely accepted, even by many within the Confederation, that the abrupt termination of the deal, the richest contract in CAF's history, with French media group Lagarde in late 2019, is the main factor behind the current crisis. CAF has so far struggled to find any significant alternatives to a contract which would have provided the organization with a steady income until 2028.
It is at this particular time that I thank you for always being with us and always joining us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We should keep updating you. It is TV Africa, the right to know.